So I say hello from Cape Town, and I speak today to somebody who is in Cape Town and who is involved with the V&A Waterfront. For those of you who don't know, the V&A Waterfront is a 123-hectare neighborhood. It receives 24 million visitors per year, which account for 62% of tourism spend of the top 20 tourist destinations. It's set in a working harbor with Table Mountain as a backdrop, contains 22 heritage sites, over 450 shops, more than 80 restaurants, and I think 8 hotels. But who will tell us about this is Leigh Thomas, who's the Executive Manager, Hotel and Residential. Welcome, Leigh. How are you?
Hello, Nils. Thanks for inviting me to chat today, and I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Great to have you. Really, really appreciate it. You are tasked with a massive task to oversee residential and hotel in a neighborhood. And I love that when I did my research into the V&A Waterfront, which of course I've known for many years and been there for I don't know how many times. It is a neighborhood, and that's what I love about it. It's not, which some people initially, when it came about, I don't know, when was it started?
In the early 90s, late
early 90s. People were saying initially, it's only for tourists and what have you, but yet it has embraced Cape Town, and Cape Town has embraced it, and it offers a real neighborhood charm. Was I right with 8 hotels?
There are 8 operators, but there are actually 13 hotel properties. Okay. That are on the precinct, yes.
So I got part of it right, I'm glad. Now, we're looking back, and hopefully we're looking back on a horrible period. How have you managed to keep the place going? How have you managed to keep it going during this COVID-induced crisis?
Well, I think firstly it's important for me to say that the V&A has acknowledged the devastation and the terrible impact that the pandemic has had on lives and livelihoods of its tenants, their staff, and even our own staff and our own business. And we are very empathetic towards the families that have been impacted. I'm sure every one of us have been touched in some way by this pandemic on some level. To echo your point, yes, we do consider ourselves a neighborhood. So part of Cape Town, and as a community, we have endeavored to assist where we can through a variety of initiatives, and they actually go beyond just the rent relief. So much so, we were recently acknowledged and awarded a global award at World Tourism Market in London in the category of responsible tourism for sustaining employees and communities through the pandemic. So I think that was great acknowledgement and recognition for the work that we have done. Our primary support in this area has been on the tourism affected micro enterprises that exist at the front.
Now, hospitality is a major aspect at the V&A Waterfront, and to me also brings about its charm. With hospitality, not just hotels but restaurants, takeaways, eat in, the craft market, the watershed with local craft and whatever. Now, to come to hospitality, what will happen going forward? I mean, is there more space being allocated to hospitality? And maybe I can throw in the next question, and we can take it from there. Are there any concepts being looked at, new concepts being looked at, that are kind of the wider hospitality aspect? Long stay, service departments, hostels, student accommodation, senior residences, that kind of thing, because we see globally that these things really do evolve, and that what used to be a strict hotel kind of concept has now merged and morphed into a variety of aspects. Multi-use comes up, all those kind of aspects. What's happening there?
Okay, so if I go back to your first question around how have they survived through the pandemic, all the eateries and those sectors of our precinct that really speak to the traveller or the foreign tourist in particular, we've aimed to try and excuse the pun, keep the wheel turning. So our main focus was to keep our infrastructure well maintained and create a platform that when businesses were able to trade under the various lockdown levels, they could trade and they could do the best they could with whatever market was available to them. We got the one of the first WTTC safe travel stamps for the precinct to accommodate obviously people moving in the property safely. And we also, we've had load shedding. we have over 45 generators on the property. So whenever there is load shedding, we are able to let businesses continue to trade. So to try and keep the foundation and the base going is what we've done. We have, as I mentioned, 13 hotel properties, which have, it's been devastating for them. And we have over 80 restaurants and eateries. In the process, we've lost 10 of them, and we have 5 new ones coming on stream. So there is some revival and new brands coming through in that space. From a retail tenancy perspective, we only have 3% vacancy. So again, whatever initiatives that we have taken and whatever support that we've given and assistance, it's been to keep that wheel turning and to keep the property alive and business operating as best as possible. Looking forward, we have a pipeline in place. We have earmarked sites for hotel establishments and for other types of accommodations, such as you've mentioned. The basis for it will be to service those gaps that we find we might have, and it could be in the apart hotel space, it could be in the mature living space. So we are looking at filling those kind of gaps. The concepts will need to be market and demand driven. They're not, cookie cutter in the sense that we say they've got to be of the star grading or they've got to be of this brand. I think we're open to accommodating whatever's going to suit the mix in the overall precinct and wherever the demand is going to lead us. Obviously, as a brand, we as much as we are inclusive and being all things to all people, we do own certain of the markets. So the luxury market is an important market for us. It does really well here. We would not ignore that. At the same time, long stay is becoming a new way people like to travel. We need to fill that gap. We don't have that. But we do have a pipeline, and we do have some sites that we are looking at. Whether it be an international brand or a local brand, we're not hard and fast of what it must be. It needs to meet the need.
Yeah. Now the international brand I want to come back to just now, but looking at residential, at hotels, what percentage does that mean for the retailer and the restaurateur in the V&A Waterfront? How much, in other words, how much business is self-generated, if I can put it that way, on site? So through the residents, whether that be temporary, slightly longer stay, or residents who live in the waterfront.
Okay, so certain of our retail is very specific to international. So they would probably have a 70-30, 80-20 split where they're relying on the international traveler more than they are on the local. That would be our curio space, some of our jewelers, a little bit of the food and beverage potentially. For the main, we swap it the other way around, and our retailers would be looking at a 60-40 split of local coming through, more so, and the foreign tourist is the cream on the crop.
Right.
In our hotel space, most of our room revenue is generated through international travel. So depending on the sector, is where you're going to see which retailers are fed from which markets.
Yeah.
Overall, as I say, I think there's a nice healthy balance. Where it's been quite obvious is our foot traffic over weekends has picked up, and we're about 20% off our 2019 levels over weekends. But during the week, it's clear the foreign traveller hasn't been around. That being said, with the new flights coming into Cape Town with Lufthansa and British Airways, and the US flights coming in later in December, there is already a nice uptick that we're seeing happening, and there's definitely foreign languages being spoken on the property, and you can see that things are starting to look up from a foreign traveller perspective. Also that our key markets, we're off the red list now with the UK, and I think as soon as airlift improves and as soon as regulations become less prohibitive, either cost-wise or logistics-wise, the quicker we will feel the recovery coming through.
Sticking with demographics, Leigh, Africa, what role does the traveller from, let's say, up continent, or some people say Cape Town is on the top of the continent, it's all a question of perspective, down continent, up continent, but our African neighbours and a little bit more than the neighbourhood, what role do they play in percentages? Because a lot of them used to go I know when we tried to lure them in, they used to go shopping to London, they used to go shopping to, I don't know, Geneva, wherever it was, somewhere in Europe. And yet when I look at the V&A Waterfront, we've got everything that they have as far as the offers are concerned and the shops are concerned and the retail mix is concerned. What percentages are we looking at there, plus minus?
I wouldn't be able to give you a percentage offhand, Nils, but what I can tell you is from a regional perspective, we definitely are noticing a strong regional presence. And also, funny enough, we are seeing obviously a lot of Johannesburg people, people coming from up country and spending time here. The luxury part of our retail has definitely done extremely well through this. And to your point, I think the shopping on that level, we definitely have seen has been strong support from regional markets north of our
It's amazing how luxury has actually increased in this period. We see that in other markets as well from a hotel perspective that they've come up amazingly. A few weeks ago we had a round table in Dubai. They have broken the $1,000 ADR and a bit more, and that was in the top end luxury. That brings me back to the brand aspect. You said we're not really sort of focused or chasing any brands, but right now when I look at the landscape in the V&A Waterfront, there is Radisson Red, which is an international brand, and I think that's almost, well, you could say blue, but blue isn't really part of the waterfront. So, but that's it. Are we seeing more? Are we likely to see more? I mean, you can tell me, nobody else will hear, if there are.
Yeah. So the one and only is the other international brand.
Of course.
So we have one and only, and we have Radisson Red. And I think, Radisson Red came in at one and only was definitely a front runner. They, opened their doors in 2009. So we then had no international representation until Radisson Red opened in 2017. I think the major brands have now also got a stronger focus on Southern Africa, where they were previously in North Africa. And so we have access now to have conversations with a much broader range of offering in the hotel space. And that's, for us, it is more around what is going to service the market, what is South Africa wanting to do in terms of bringing in foreign travelers and from where, and then where do we fill those gaps and what brands will suit those markets. So we're very open to looking at whatever is open to coming to South Africa. You can contact Mandarin or Oriental and ask them if they're interested, and yes, they would be, but have they experienced the African continent? Do they understand, how things work here? So it's a combination of finding everything working together. It is awesome to see international brands looking at South Africa, in particular Cape Town, and yes, the V&A Waterfront. So it's interesting conversations that we have, and it's exciting. I think what often is a misnomer when people do say, oh, international versus local, really what we are buying is the international brand, what do you call it, kudos, and we're buying a massive distribution and systems environment, but all the employees, all the procurement, everything else is local and South African. So that also is important for us, that it's not as if we are losing anything to overseas. It becomes a product, but it's part of the global family and
so it should be. It should be local. It should be with an international brand. And there's so many wonderful brands that have realized that you don't do a cookie cutter. So you wake up and say, well, Friday must be Cape Town. No, you can see it's Cape Town, even though it's an international label on top. And a lot of them have realized that through discussions of sustainability, through discussions of involving the communities and all those kind of things, which I think are very, very important and which you guys do so very, very well. You mentioned great conversations. This was a great conversation. I thank you for that. I wish we had a little bit more time. I look forward to catching up with you. I send best regards down there to the V&A Waterfront. I say thank you, Leigh Thomas, and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you, Nils. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.